By the time the Babylonian war machine arrived at a city's gates, the outcome was often already mathematically decided. Thousands of highly disciplined infantry, armed with bronze axes and interlocking shields, moved as a single lethal organism across the arid plains. Modern history typically views the man who commanded this army through the lens of a legal scholar. We associate him almost exclusively with the Code of Hammurabi, an extensive list of early laws carved into a towering diorite stele in cuneiform, the wedge-shaped writing system of the ancient Near East. To the rival kings of the 2nd millennium BCE, Hammurabi was an apex predator who systematically dismantled the existing geopolitical order. His path to total hegemony followed a ruthlessly logical algorithm. He utilized temporary coalitions to isolate rivals, weaponized the landscape to break sieges, and executed sudden, catastrophic betrayals the moment an ally's utility expired. The famous laws he wrote served as the administrative infrastructure required to govern the ruins of a decade-long campaign of calculated geopolitical violence. To understand his strategy, we have to look at the board he inherited. The Middle Bronze Age theater of war was defined entirely by the Tigris and Euphrates river systems. Control the water, and you control the food supply and the trade routes. This topographical map illustrates the geopolitical layout of Syro-Mesopotamia in 1792 BCE. It was a network of fractured, highly competitive city-states, constantly shifting alliances to gain incremental advantages over their neighbors. Notice the severe constraint on Babylon's starting position. It was a tiny territory, entirely boxed in by heavily armed powers, Larsa to the south, Mari to the northwest, and Elam to the east. Hammurabi's father, Sen-Muballit, had stabilized the city's internal politics. However, his attempt to expand the borders ended in a swift defeat by Rim-Sin I, the powerful king of Larsa. This created a severe strategic tension for the new king. Facing enemies with mathematically superior troop counts and greater resources, Hammurabi had to find a way to weaponize diplomacy. On this map, red vectors represent a multi-pronged Elamite invasion from the eastern mountains. In 1764 BCE, they pushed into the Central Plains, threatening every city-state. Hammurabi reacted pragmatically, approaching his former enemy, King Rim-Sin of Larsa, to form a desperate, unified coalition. The combined Mesopotamian forces met the Elamite invaders in the open desert. It was a brutal clash of infantry, defined by heavy shields, bronze weapons, and high casualty rates in the sweltering heat. The sheer weight of the combined Babylonian and Larsa armies broke the invasion. The Elamite forces were completely repelled and driven out of the Central Plains. This conflict established the cold logic of Hammurabi's foreign policy. Alliances were temporary equations, solved exclusively to eliminate a mutual threat. The moment the Elamites retreated, the equation changed. Larsa transitioned from an essential ally to the final obstacle preventing Hammurabi from dominating the wealthy southern cities. As the connection between Babylon and Larsa shatters on the map, Hammurabi immediately signs flanking alliances with minor surrounding states like Nippur and Lagash, pinning Larsa in place. But he still faced a severe tactical problem. Larsa was a wealthy capital protected by massive, heavily fortified mud brick walls. A direct infantry assault against those defenses would have resulted in staggering Babylonian casualties. This topology illustrates Hammurabi's signature solution, hydrological warfare. Engineers built massive upstream dams, choking off Larsa's water supply. Then came the kinetic strike. The Babylonians destroyed their own dams, sending millions of gallons of water rushing downstream, physically washing away the enemy wall's mud brick foundations. With the defenses compromised by the floodwaters, the Babylonian infantry stormed the breach. The resulting siege devastated the city, leading to the total defeat of Rim-Sin and the capture of the entire southern theater. Hammurabi rewrote the logic of Bronze Age engagement. He proved that environmental control and topographical dominance were more decisive than raw numerical superiority. With the south pacified, the Babylonian war machine pivoted. Hammurabi marched northwest up the Euphrates, pointing his army directly at his oldest and most powerful ally, the kingdom of Mari. Mari, ruled by King Zimri-Lim, was the hub of the Euphrates trade routes. Its wealth funded an opulent palace complex that stood as the cultural and economic peak of the ancient world. Hammurabi evaluated the situation with the same cold logic he applied to Larsa. Directly owning Mari's water rights and trade revenues was a superior strategic outcome to negotiating for them, even with a faithful ally. Usually, Hammurabi absorbed wealthy cities like Uruk and Isin into his empire, repairing their infrastructure to bolster his own tax base. At Mari, he broke this pattern. After capturing the city, he ordered his engineers to systematically dismantle the palace, burn the structures, and wipe the city off the map. Zimri Lim vanished from the historical record. The destruction of Mari was a cold strategic negation, a strike designed to permanently remove the only urban center wealthy enough to challenge Babylon's economic supremacy. Over the next 6 years, Hammurabi executed the final phases of his campaign. He pushed north to capture Assyria and east to target Eshnunna, repeating his devastating water-damming tactics to break their resistance. The macro map of Mesopotamia in 1755 BCE shows the final result. The fragmented landscape has been entirely consumed, replaced by a single unified territory stretching from the Persian Gulf to Syria. With his enemies eliminated, Hammurabi transitioned to imperial management, initiating massive infrastructure projects, dredging new canals, and raising the towering, fortified brick walls that made Babylon synonymous with security. He achieved a level of unification not seen in centuries, building a stable state through relentless strategic logic rather than an over-reliance on brute force. The Code of Hammurabi functioned as the essential administrative infrastructure of this new order. By standardizing justice, he suppressed the cycle of tribal blood feuds, stabilizing the multi-ethnic empire he had just violently unified. But the stability was fragile. Almost immediately after Hammurabi's death in 1750 BCE, the empire began to fracture under his son, Samsu-Iluna, who was unable to hold the vast territory together. Hammurabi's career provides a case study in the harsh arithmetic of power. He demonstrated that total hegemony requires the patience to wait for the exact moment of leverage, the ingenuity to weaponize the earth itself, and the absolute ruthlessness to destroy anyone who stands in the way.